Okay, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Neighbours. Today, we're chatting with someone who's been helping the Newmarket move, heal, and live better for over 20 years, Dr. Marcy, clinic director at Align Health Center. She's a former soccer player, a cancer survivor, a mom, and a passionate advocate for proactive health. One thing I love about Dr. Marcy's story is that she didn't take the straight path to becoming a chiropractor. In fact, she's written about how not getting into her first choice school was one of the best things that ever happened to her. We're going to talk about that journey, how she built a thriving clinic in her hometown, and why her message to young practitioners is still focus on yourself, not your competition. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Myles.
Okay, so you've been a trusted health leader in the community for 2 decades. When you think about all those years, what stands out the most to you think?
I think the biggest thing has been the pride that the community has in supporting local businesses and feeling a sense of ownership in seeing young people who start businesses that are sort of been groomed from grade school and high school. You know, maybe it's your principals or your teachers or your former coaches. They want to support young people in successful businesses, whatever it happens to be. And that's just been, I left the community thinking there's better opportunity elsewhere and tried in other communities prior to Newmarket. I thought at the beginning, when I started 20 some odd years ago, the competition was there were a lot of clinics in Newmarket at that time, and it was small 20 years ago, and didn't think people would come and drive to Vaughan or Maple, where I first opened up. And then I realized, no, you know what? Come here. I have goodwill invested that I didn't even realize, whether it was from sports, whether it was from high school, whether it was from parents who worked in real estate and or other local businesses, that those people really want to raise you up. Yeah,
we sometimes overlook like our network that we've built over years and other aspects of our lives. And I completely agree with you. Like, there is a culture of the supportiveness of local and really supporting one of our owns.
Yeah.
And we feel that, especially in neighbor media land, we see that story over and over again. I think it's a special characteristic of Newmarket.
I think that's what brings people back. You know, how many people leave and think there's something shinier elsewhere, whether it's the big smoke or a new evolving community. I think there's something that just keeps drawing people back to Newmarket, and, yourself being a local boy as well, growing up. And there's just something, those ties that just anchor us down to feel connected. And, I think it's lovely that we can knit in new people into our community and be part of that are newcomers to our community as well, and that they want to be part of the fabric. And that's what I think Newmarket is a little different, is that it's not just commuters that come in and leave. Mm-hmm. Some other, GTA communities might be that way. I don't think Newmarket and surrounding Aurora and East Gwillimbury are that way. I think people really want to stay here and live and work and play in this community.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you grew up in sports, competitive figure skating and captaining your university soccer team. How did that sport world kind of shape your understanding of one side movement, but also injury?
Yeah, I think as an athlete, when I was much younger, I went to medical doctors like most people did with injuries. And the answer was, well, here's a prescription and take time off. As a competitive athlete, whether it's the next tournament is this weekend or something else is coming up in a week, I didn't have that time. So I was like, there's got to be another answer. And egotistically, I'll be honest, I wanted to be a doctor of some sort. And so I landed on chiropractic, a very, movement-based, body focus. Yes, sports is where I started, but I evolved my practice as I evolved as a chiropractor as well into, more innate healing, but still movement focused and body focused as well.
Yeah, obviously an athlete myself, that's where pure movement exists, right, in sport, but once we can understand that movement is everywhere for everyone, right? Yeah. Everyone is moving throughout the day, all day, no matter age or ability, there is movement in everyday life too. So it makes sense that it evolves.
And it's not just about injury. It's about enhancement. It's about being the best version of the person you are, whether it's on the field or it's sitting in your CEO desk, allowing your body to, think and your nervous system move and cognitively. And that's why I say there's been an evolution. I started with athletes, and those athletes have matured into, business people themselves, and they've evolved with me. And so now I'm like, okay, you may have a weekend warrior and they still trust that they can come to me. But I also talk about cognitive function, and I'm talking about with young students about memory retention and stress management, et cetera, all those things to increase performance, regardless, again, like I said, if it's on the field or it's in your studies, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to circle back on that just one because I've been obsessed with that, especially this year. But I love the story that like the original school that you were applying to didn't get in, somewhat you're devastated at first, but really it set you on a path that kind of set you up even better. Talk about that story a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think through adversity, I think, if you can overcome adversity, I think when you're on the other side, you can look back, whether it was on my school journey, on my cancer journey, to be able to look back and just see what you've overcome. But by leaving also the community and the comforts of home in Ontario to go afar to New York Chiropractic College, is where I ended up landing. It allowed me to focus my attention on what I was doing. One, it allowed me to appreciate home that much more. And it just drove me to come back here even more so as well. And to be honest, I truly do think that the education I got, because I wasn't distracted by all the other things, home, friends, the big city, it allowed me to really invest myself in my studies and really kind of, you needed to in that type of studies.
Yeah. And it's amazing all those things where it's like initial devastation, but when you look backwards, it's like, oh, it was the exact thing that was kind of needed at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I also think about the people who, when after first year not getting in, second year not getting in, and then third year being like, okay, what do I do from here? Getting a little bit older and older each year was like, I have to make a career choice here. And the doubters, to be honest, it maybe made me push a little bit harder to say, no, this is my dream. And I knew from high school, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with my hands. I wanted to be a healer. I wanted to be in some form of medical or health. And so it just made it that much sweeter when I did finally get in. And there were, we had to make some big decisions, to pick up and move. And that was a big deal.
Yeah.
To be dropped off in the middle of mid-state New York by myself, like, oh my gosh, where am I? But yeah, it worked out for the best for sure.
Yeah. It's amazing how that competitiveness from being an athlete, transcends into ambition in that exact way. Like what you're saying, that story, and how we can put chips on our shoulder to be like, I'll show you type thing. I have this concept, that element, it's a good starter. And I think it's a good piece of it. Obviously it's not sustainable. You don't want to live life with a chip on your shoulder, but it's funny how that kind of transcends from sport and then into kind of career as well.
I think it's competition. I think that's really what it is. It's innate in who you are. You wanted to compete on the field, on the rink, in wherever you are. And then this is a competition, and it becomes a competition with yourself and maybe with the doubters, right?
Yes.
Oh, you can't make that soccer team. Oh, you can't make that, you can't get into chiropractic college. Well, I'll show you.
Yeah.
And I did. And here I am, I was never, I'll be honest, and for anyone who's out there listening, I wasn't the smartest. I wasn't the best soccer player, but I worked my butt off for every single thing. Perseverance should be my middle name, because I just keep persevering for what my goal is. Anything I've ever really visioned in my life, I'm very fortunate I've succeeded in. I think, my vision board, sometimes I look at it and I'm like, oh, I've taken that off. I've taken this off. Now, what am I going to put on now? What are the next things that are going to go on the vision board? You've got to be careful because they come true. They come true as well.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. The only way to really lose is to quit,
Yeah. Great quote. That's awesome. You should put that somewhere. That's really good.
And I love, kind of this concept of the focus on yourself that I saw you put out there. Talk about that piece of it. It's like, just focus on yourself, what you are building. I think like you coming back to Newmarket, there's like a lot of competition, kind of having those thoughts, but really it's just like, no, build your best thing here. Yeah,
I think, looking at that, I just knew what was best for me. I tried, and it didn't come naturally where else I was. And I thought, why am I fighting this? I think sometimes we also feel like we've got something to prove, and we don't realize the easier stream and the pathway was right in front of us all the time. So I don't know if that's really answering what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Or
I think when I read it, I kind of felt a sense of it. This kind of goes back to being an athlete too, where when you're playing sports, there's a winner and a loser, right? That's just how the game is played, right? But in the world of kind of like business, it's not a zero-sum game, where when I hear like focus on yourself, I always think like, if you want to build the biggest building in town, you can either tear down all the other buildings, or you can just build the biggest building in town, right? And that kind of focus on yourself and dialing that in, that's what I took from it when I read it out there. And I just love that concept too, because obviously business is competitive and I love the competition of it, right? But there's enough for everyone. It's like, you don't have to lose for me to win.
That's right. And I've always been, that way. You often hear imitation is the highest form of flattery when you see someone copying what you're doing. And I never thought of it really that way. I was just like, kind of just stay in my own lane of genius and be just, it's hard sometimes. Those blinders sometimes do like kind of get the best of you. You're like sneak a peek, especially in today's social world when you're being bombarded with, everyone doing this and that. And, you can get into that FOMO, but I was just like, no, just try to be as authentic to who I am and what I offer, and do it really, really well. And I say this to a lot of young professionals. I say to them, find something that you're passionate about, whether that's knitting, like my colleague does, whether that's babies, whether that's soccer players like I did, and it will kind of evolve and it will be attracted to you as well. And I was the soccer doctor for, how many years, and was very fortunate to work with a lot of young women now, and to see the evolution of these young people I got to work with now are, mothers themselves and bringing their babies. And I'm seeing multi-generation of families, not only, the now grandparents and the children, and now their babies. And it's what an honor it really is.
Is that knitting Dr. Crosley?
It is. She's wonderful.
Yeah, she actually fixed my knee years ago. She actually taught me what I didn't even know what a T-band was, and like to fix it, she had to scrape it. But then I learned of what it was, and then I could make sure it didn't happen again.
Yeah. But she's a great example of that idea of just be authentic to who you are, and really just you will attract. Who thought that as a knitter that you would have an audience of people? And I say this to anybody in business, just find an audience that you feel passionate about. It could be anime, it could be gaming, it could be soccer, it could be hockey, and because you'll have a common thread to be able to work with one another, and you understand one another and where you've been. So,
yeah, 100%. Like whatever that passion or love is, double down onto that. I think when you're kind of aligned with your true self on that, the universe will reward you as you are on that path, and it will just attract the people, things that you need to, as you need them, as you kind of go through.
And you use the perfect word, align, right? And that's, to be honest, one of the reasons, and I'll give credit to my husband, that he actually originally, the name was supposed to be something else of my clinic. And we kind of brainstormed, well, what should the name be of your clinic? And we talked about aligning not only the spine, we talked about aligning other services of collaborative care. We talked about alignment of the person as a whole and what they need. And I was like, you're right. It's Align.
Yeah.
So it started as Align Chiropractic, and now here we are 20 years later as Align Health Center that has, all these services aligned together with, our primary mission is, patient-centered care.
Yeah. I love that. It is a perfect, it just fits so perfectly.
It does.
Aligned, I think about being centered, as an individual too, where I can kind of feel like I'm off the path sometimes and I need to get back to it, but that's the same thing, getting aligned. And
But it could, you can bring that word anywhere. It could be aligning with you today to talk about, conversations with neighbors. It's the person who's listening today that aligns with what we are talking about. That, that's why that word to me is very powerful.
Yeah. So how has being a mom influenced the way that you approach patient care and with families and kind of that concept, new dad?
Yeah.
So like my whole world has changed. I'm 8 months in. So like what has you taken from that and then kind of apply into the practice and dealing with patients? And
great question. And sometimes I reflect and think, when my daughter was at that new stage in life, I had to jump right back into business because my business was at that time when it really also needed me. And as much as I have my love of my one and only daughter, she's my biological daughter, I sometimes think of Align as my first child. I hate to say that, but
it's so true though.
You give birth to a business and you treat it and nurture it in the same manner as you do a live infant. And there's just a little more emotion and connection with your live child as well. So, but some days, I feel bad. I feel like the business may have gotten more of me than my daughter needed. I think where I'm at right now, and maybe over the last 5 to 7 years, where the business has been more sustainable and able to kind of support itself, I've been able to take a step back for a number of different reasons, but it also has afforded me the ability to be with my daughter more and with my family more, to be at those important moments. So
if you didn't have obviously the business was going to be taking a lot of time, but I think if you had that missing piece, you wouldn't have been aligned because you would have that part missing. Right. And
if I look at it, sometimes I think, would it have been better to be more of an engaged mother at infancy or more of an engaged mother if I had to choose in her, preteen and teen years? And I think if I had to choose, I chose the better half, where she will have more memories of mom being at every recital and every soccer game and every, whatever it happened to be. I was able to cross myself out of my schedule and be like, no, this is more important. And you know what? I think also practicing what you preach, your patients or my community understood, she puts a high value on family, and that also resonated with them to allow them and feel comfortable to bring their families to me.
Yeah, for sure. So what would be like a couple takeaways if someone wanted to improve, let's say like mobility? What's like a couple simple things that someone could be doing? Movement
is life. That is that one thing I say often to my patients is movement is life. It doesn't matter if you're 8 or you're 88. Getting up and moving as much as you possibly can, even if it's that you're moving in a walker with a cane, walking as much as you possibly can. If you sit still, you're just going to freeze up.
So what is it? Movement is life. Movement is life.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we should just end on that. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And really appreciate it. Okay. Bye-bye.